not drinking, just tasting for 6 weeks in a row. That's just nuts to me. I've got a lot of comments that the beer people were very fun. So tonight we're going to make this really fun. We have a fun guy on with us, William Woodruff out of Seattle, and we're going to talk about him in a minute. First, I forgot last night what I said. I always say we're doing some housekeeping for Fifth and Wine. Remember, I couldn't remember what that was last night. And it wasn't the rosé either. I couldn't remember. So we're going to start with that. So today we sent out an email. Hope you guys saw it. It's for next Friday night. So you only have to drink one day next week. Well, you guys, yeah, you do have to actually. Yeah, you have to. We have Randall Graham out of California, who is I don't know, controversial. He just speaks his mind, makes me laugh, and I only have 10 people I follow on Twitter, and he's one of them because he says things that are on his mind. He doesn't have much of a filter, so I think that'll come through next Friday. And then we talked our friend Sydney George into doing a food demonstration. So she's doing fun skewers. So I think we're going to do that next Friday at 6 o'clock simultaneously, we hope. Sid and I are going to practice that on Monday. You guys are not allowed to that because we have to do this to make sure. We're on a Yellowstone club. I think I told you guys we're on a Yellowstone club with Sai was his last name, Asian cook.
Ming, Sai.
Yeah. Anyway, and it was really, really interesting and fun, but it was a little bit disjointed. So we want to make sure we get this down. So we'll have it down next Friday at 6 o'clock. And we have 2 wines and we have food, and it's going to be fun. Oh, here, Tara's there sharing something. Let's see what that is. Oh, there it is. There you go. So that's the wines. Oh, see, Tara, I had this all done. I have it here. But that's a little better picture. Right. So that, anyway, sign up. It's going to keep us in business, and it'll be fun. I ordered these flatbreads, par-baked flatbreads out of California, and I thought it was a scam once, and then I thought it was a scam twice, and Tara stopped payment on it, and then it showed up today. And then I thought they only sent us 8, and they sent us, 12, and they sent us 48. I lost one of the boxes somewhere along the way. I'm seriously going to get fired over this whole COVID thing. I'm just not doing well at all. So we bought these. They're really they're cool. They're par baked. That means that we get to put all the ingredients on top and put it in the oven, and then it turns out awesome. And it's better than our non-bread that we've been doing because it's not limp. Like when you hold a piece of pizza, it holds up. So we're gonna have to apologize. It's rebelsmuggling.com, which sounds like a scam place. So I don't think I was completely wrong. I thought, and then they didn't ship, and then they didn't send me a tracking number, and then they didn't respond to my email. And then, so I'm getting all upset and sending bad emails to them. And then all of a sudden it showed up today. And so I'm apologizing to rebelsmuggling.com. And we have a new fun flatbread that we're going to start doing next week to go. We'll give you all the ingredients, and we'll give you that flatbread that is definitely a scam. And you guys can take it home and cook it. So that'll be fun. Tomorrow morning, we usually do Texas style Eggs Benedict for our brunch, which is just smoked pork and, a relish that we made. And other than that, it's just normal. And we couldn't do that because we don't know how to smoke pork. And the guy that knew how to smoke pork is now laid off, unfortunately. And so I called my friend Sean Knox with Big Mouth Barbecue, and he has some smoked pork left over, but he can't get it. He's out of town, so he can't get it to me tomorrow. So we're gonna have to change that. Sorry, we have no Texas style barbecue Eggs Benedict, so we're just gonna have to do normal, Canadian bacon stuff. So usually we like to do something a little bit different, but that's how it is. So I'm gonna show my age right now. I don't know how many of you guys ever heard of the Reader's Digest. Do you remember that at all? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about a column today. I'm going to write it next week, and it's going to be called "Life in these United States." Do you remember that? Anybody out there? Yeah, I think that would be a really fun, really fun write. So I'm going to do that next week. Kind of a smart ass. Imagine that. Kind of a take on what's going on in life in these United States. And then brunch tomorrow. I just want you to know, Shannon and Toby almost always come in and get a mimosa to go, or two or three. I mean, not three, just two. I'm joking about the three. Right?
Two. She says.
Right. So brunch tomorrow. We will not have Texas Al eggs Benedict, but we have lots of fun things, and we did some amazing prep today. The potatoes are awesome. We bought this new thing where this is hand gestures for where you punch it through, and it makes these potatoes into these little thin, and they're really good potatoes. So anyway, I think that's it. Oh no, hold on. My son Jacob said that I should probably, he's here with us. I should probably mention that if there's any young, cute single girls out there, he's in the market. So that'll make him happy that I said that. Right. And then my father-in-law was in today, and from Shelby. So I felt a little bit afraid of that because we might die. Shelby's kind of the hot center of Montana on that, but he and his partner, I guess I would call it his consigliere, just kind of takes care of everything for him. Had our brisket sandwich or our whatever. Braised beef sandwich, and they absolutely loved it. Said one of the best sandwiches ever. So that's my last pitch for that. I think that is it for fifth stuff. So I'm going to tell a little story, William, before you get to take the stage. So William and I were sitting in the front seat of a van. He was driving, probably because I had
probably dangerously driving.
And we were going back he took us to a really fun spot in Champagne, Marie Copenhague, and gave us a tour. And then the Copenhague family took us to this castle. It even had moats and things, right?
It was a moat. Yes, Mark, yeah. A moat.
Right? And we had this amazing meal. And then they brought along still wines, which is really unusual in Champagne. They weren't bubbly, so they took Pinot Noir and Pinot Meunier. I think did we have Chard? I can't remember.
Yes, Chardonnay and Pinot Meunier was the white, and the red was Pinot Noir.
Right. So anyway, we're driving back from that, back to wherever we were going, I don't know. And William's driving, and we're all talking in English because we're normal people, not like these guys. And all of a sudden, there's this British lady in the second to back seat, and she starts talking in Italian to William, and William just responds back to her in Italian. He'd been speaking French all day, and then all of a sudden they burst into this Italian conversation, and they sound like they're mad at each other, because the Italian language is very demonstrative. And so at the end of the whole conversation, I asked William, like, how did you learn Italian? And he said, well, I was in college, university at Siena, and I was studying Italian, and I was struggling a little bit. And then it was raining one day, and I was walking to class, and then all of a sudden the Italian language just kind of showered over me, and I could then from that day forward I could speak Italian, which to me is crazy and nuts, but fun.
And it was 6 weeks that you learned it?
Right. So
it took 6 weeks.
6 weeks to learn Italian. Yes. That's amazing, William.
So anyway, that's the start of my story. So William and I talked about earlier today, a lot of you guys were on with us. He was on with us the first week with the French wine, the Viognier from Dumaine de Couronne. And I still want to have him kind of talk again about, your entrance into the wine world, or just your education, or whatever you want to riff about your personal life a little bit, because you lived a really interesting life.
Yeah, I hope not to bore you all. Thank you, all of you, for joining us. It's an honor and a privilege to have you spend your afternoon with us. In my much younger and foolish years, I was awarded a research grant by the Peterson Institute of International Economics. And I'd written a very minor paper on the nascent, what was then called the European Economic Community, and the single currency called we call it the euro now. And I was given the opportunity to study with this research grant in one of the 3 anchor countries of the EU, one of the 3 countries that signed the Treaty of Rome in 1958. So I was given the choice to study in Germany, France, or Italy. And my young brain, I said to myself, Germany, a little cold. France, a bit warmer, gorgeous women. And then I said, Italy, let me think. Ferrari, surrounded by the Mediterranean Sea, gorgeous women, I'm off. So just like that, I made the decision to study in Italy. And there were 2 universities in Italy that are famous for what they call the Ascension criteria. And it was Baccano in Milan, which is their version of Harvard, or the University of Siena, which would be their version of, I want to call it UC Berkeley. And so I said, okay, Milano, freezing and always raining, or University of Siena in Tuscany. It's easy. I'm going to Siena. So with a one-way ticket and no language skills, off I went. I went to Siena in the spring of 1990. So this shows you how old I am, to study economics. And 4 years into the future, I had a French girlfriend in Italy, in Tuscany. So through her, I learned the French language. And her father was quite a bigwig at a now defunct bank that no longer exists. And he specialized in agriculture economics. My advisor in the graduate program was also a specialist in something called sorry to bore you, but the Common Agricultural Policy, which is the European Union's version of the FDA, basically, and the Department of Agriculture in the US, but for all the countries that produce foodstuffs. So he said, hey, there's a position at the oldest bank on earth called Monte dei Paschi di Siena. It's one of the banks that was in existence. Obviously, it didn't fund Christopher Columbus's voyage, but it existed when Christopher Columbus went to the King and Queen of Spain to get money. And there's a position open, and I took the position. And one of my clients were people from farms, families who grew foodstuffs. And one of those farms was a producer in Tuscany. And my old girlfriend's father introduced me to a couple of families in the south of France. And that's the French connection from being in Italy. As we say throughout history, when it comes to us men, there's always a woman involved. And this example was no different. There was a woman involved. I had no real path. I had no real idea that I would take this voyage. I really was thinking about international economics and finance, international finance, not wine. Wine really brings out it brings my blood. It brings my blood to a higher temperature. I mean, it brings the passion to me. I'm much more analytical. So I chased the passion. I chased the dream. And if you'd asked me then to project into the future, I would have never. What has brought the wealth of experience and friendship to my wife and my children, I would have never imagined.
Yeah, so you're kind of getting to the point of Chloe. And when did that start? And who was your first client in Chloe Importers? So tell them about that you're an importer and whatever that kind of story.
Oh wow! You say in the wine importation business, if you want any form of fortune, you start with the bigger one, because it's a crazy business. You buy something on the other side of the globe, and that really means taking a lot of risks. So I deal directly with the families, the people who have their hands in the soil, who wake up and go off before the crack of the sunlight and come home when the sun is down sometimes. An importer means that we are the source, the closest to the source of production. That's what that means.
And you have to buy like container full.
Yes, because it doesn't make any sense to buy a case of wine and ship it around the globe to find someone who will enjoy it. It's equivalent to a car. You can't go and buy a steering wheel. I guess you can buy a steering wheel, but if you're going to make a car, you make the whole car. You make tens of thousands of those cars just to sell one. And wine is the same. To sell one case of wine or one bottle, you really have to go all in and buy a lot of it for the math to work. So yeah. That's it's a big risk, very risky business.
We've talked about this before, and actually in person and on Zoom. He drives a really beat up Toyota or something, and I said just raise the price. All of his wines are very economical. I said just raise the price by $1. None of us will care, but he won't do it. The one thing I love about William is that he is the most honest and forthright, and just tells it like it is of anybody I've ever met in this importing business, especially. But so he's just doing this for the passion and the love. He's not. I'm sure you're making some money, but you're definitely not getting rich, just like I'm not, right?
Oh, we have 2 children, and my student loan is nearly paid off. And from my second graduate degree, not my first one, which was paid for. But no, in life, obviously the choice is not this black and white, but really you can have either time or a tiny bit of money. Mm-hmm. It's very rare to have both. Wow. Because we're all constrained by 24 hours, 8 of which is sleeping. And for me, I wouldn't trade the mornings that I am able to see my children. I wouldn't trade the afternoons that I'm able to see them when they come home. I wouldn't trade the time that we've been together in vineyards in France or vineyards in Italy, or time on the train from Florence to Siena with them. I wouldn't trade that for money. I wouldn't, never. Because I can't honestly say that I'll look back on my life and say, damn it, I wish I'd have had a fancier car. I'll say, I'm happy I spent this time with my children and my wife. That's wealth for me. So anyways.
That's beautiful. I love that. That's so fun. That's why we love you, William. Mm-hmm. So I want to talk a little bit about how you ended up choosing wineries along the way, in your first one and your second and your 8th.
Now, the very, very first one, the very first winery is a winery that we still work with today in Tuscany. And the family had, at that time, they were making the transition from the 13th to the 14th generation. So it was 630 years of unbroken stewardship. And I'll never forget the day I met this family. They were banking clients of ours. I drove out to their winery, had an appointment with them. I pulled up, and the guy half of his body was sticking out underneath a Fiat 500. His legs were sticking out of the car. And he said, oh, William. And so he didn't see me, he just heard my voice. Sì, sono William, abbiamo un appuntamento. Alle 13 ore, abbiamo un appuntamento. So we have an appointment. Yes, okay, you're on time. Very good. Yeah, hand me that wrench. Quale utile? Which wrench? Oh, well, I went over there. Okay, so I slid it underneath the car, and then he slid it back out. Wrong one. So this happened several times. Said, give me the mattanello, give me the hammer. Okay, took the hammer, slid it underneath, and I heard bang, 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 bang. Okay, fixed. L'ho fatto, he said, l'ho fatto. So he slid out underneath the car, stood up, and was shocked somewhat. Oh, you're an American. Your Italian is very good. I didn't expect you to be an American. Come with me. So it's a winery. It's still in Tuscany, and hasn't moved in 667 years now. And from there, he introduced me to a winery that I don't work with anymore, unfortunately, but it's on an island. And then my French girlfriend said, oh, you need to meet these people in France. So these are all relationships. They were relationships that people said, oh, you should work with these other people. We love their wines. And that's how it happened. It was people who loved some other people's wines, and they think we should work with them. And I trusted them, and they trusted us, and that's how that went.
So one of the questions from the group is, have you ever made a mistake and you thought it was going to work out really well?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That family on the island in Sardinia. Yes. I love the wines. I love the family. I love their story. And we couldn't find people who loved the wines equally as much as we did. That was one example. And then another example, we had a great relationship with the family. The father retired and the son took over, and he was a bastard.
Oh.
The son was not very nice to deal with. Not at all. And so that's how that relationship ended. So I'm human. I make mistakes, a lot of them. But until you take a chance, you can't make a mistake. You can't.
Right. I agree. So you and I had a conversation earlier about the AOC designation, and so I would like to talk about that, about how the world has followed the French in that realm.
Yes. So on every bottle of wine, you'll see this acronym, or it'll be spelled out, AOC. What does that mean? I mean, for us, it seems crazy that you can't just do what you want, how you want, plant where you want, cultivate whenever you want, whenever the hell you want. Well, in France, it's much more complicated, much more complicated. And AOC, the acronym AOC, stands for Appellation d'origine contrôlée. So the appellation, original, is controlled. The big thing of those two is, actually all three are important, but appellation is place. Origine means even more precise. Contrôlé means controlled or stringent. It's really equivalent. Think of the US. We have 50 states. Imagine if all states produce wine, for a simplistic example. And in Alaska, you can only plant Cabernet. That's it. That's all. Cabernet and Cabernet only. Done and dusted. The label will say Alaska, and you go to Mark and say, Mark, I'm looking for some Cabernet. And you find it on the shelf. The label says Alaska. Inside is Cabernet. That's a very simplistic way of looking at this. Bellini, solo in bagno, la voce telefono, capito? And so that's the big picture. We get smaller. In Alaska, there's counties. And in these counties, you will find some places warmer than others, some soil poorer or richer than others. And the southern part of, using this example, the southern part of Alaska will have obviously warmer than the northern part. So naturally, Cabernet from the south will taste different than Cabernet from the north. For the vigneron, or the wine producer, the contrôlé means rules. Well, it means that there's a minimum or a maximum spacing of vines from one from the other. That means that each vine cannot produce more than a certain amount of bunches of grapes. It means that the alcohol content by volume, or level of ripeness, cannot be less than or more than a certain percentage. There's a bunch of rules. And for us Americans, it seems crazy. So why would you do this? It should be free. You should be able to do whatever you want. But in France, it's not so. It's a combination of history and very stringent rules. I hope I've given a picture without really giving too much minutia.
No, you're doing great. One of the things that we talked about earlier was, like, in Bordeaux, there's only, I guess, 6 varietals, mostly 5. I think, are 6 still allowed by law in Bordeaux? Was Carmenere still in there?
Yes, but not widely used.
Right. And then I guess to kind of segue into, well, like in Beaune, we were in Beaune, and if it's red and it says Burgundy or one of the small appellations of Burgundy, it's got to be Pinot Noir, Chardonnay by law. I mean, they can grow anything they want, right? But they just can't put that they can't.
No,
put that
almost, yeah. So if you grow anything you want, you would have to classify the wine as, in English, as table wine, vin de table. Vin de table. However, so if you plant something that's not AOC, you have to categorize it as vin de table, but the taxes on your land don't go down. The biggest expense that a wine grower has to think about is the cost of the tax of the land. Oh, wow. And for the appellation, the tax is based on the appellation. So the taxes in Champagne are very high. The taxes in Burgundy are very high. So if you plant a table wine and your consumers or your restaurants will say, well, it's a table wine, I'm not going to give you a higher price, then you've got a big economic problem.
Oh.
That makes sense. So I guess now we should head down to the Rhone region.
Yes.
You and I talked about the demarcation of the northern Rhone, the southern Rhone, yes, and why it's so different, maybe climate, or can you explain why southern Rhone has 13 grape varieties in general and the northern Rhone has only one red, really, and just two whites, right?
Yes, and that's what we mentioned previously. The regions in France really have names based on topography. In this example, the Rhone Valley is a valley carved by the Rhone River. And the Rhone River originates in Geneva, the northern side of the Alps. The glaciers and water off these massive mountains flow. Water flows downhill. It doesn't care about borders. And it crosses from modern day Switzerland to modern day France, near Lyon, 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 like lion, but more soft, Lyon. And this river comes into France there. It heads south towards 90 degrees there and heads south. And it's carved this massive valley. And the first thing it really touches upon is the northern part of the Rhone Valley. And then about 125 miles south, it touches upon the southern Rhone Valley. So in the north, as Mark alluded to, the sole red grape variety, just one, is Syrah, or I'm sorry, Syrah.
No. Syrah and Grenache. Okay. Tell them Grenache.
Okay, it's Syrah. It's Syrah. And the Syrah has been in the Northern Rhone since the Middle Ages, which is 77 AD, roughly, to 14th century. It's been in the Northern Rhone. Its parents, Durez, Blanc, Durez and Mondus. Two grape varieties gave birth to the Syrah. So it is the sole grape variety in the north. Well, why? Well, it's partly history. And now we know, it's a scientific method. Syrah really is a cool climate grape variety. It is a cool climate grape variety. So in the north, it's only Syrah. And then about 125 miles south, you get to the southern Rhone Valley, before the Rhone makes it to the Mediterranean Sea. And there you have a basket of red grape varieties. I can name some of them. Cul Noir, Grenache, Terrestre, Mourvèdre. There has to be another.
I know we said this before, but the first time William said Grenache, when I was in his company, I'm like, what the hell grape is that? Grenache. Like, I thought he sneezed.
Yeah, and so there's a bed basket of red grape varieties in the south. But the north, we have a climatic difference in that short 125 miles. Because don't forget, France is about the size of Washington and Oregon and a slither of Idaho. And the climate really, my mother lives in Portland. I live in Seattle. The climate between Portland and Seattle is different. The climate between the southern Rhone Valley and the northern Rhone Valley is different. And then further yet, in the north, you find the predominant soil type is granite. It is granitic. And Syrah and granite is different than Syrah and limestone. So anyways, the white grape varieties in the northern Rhone, there are merely three, just three. Whereas in the south, there's far more. In the north, you have Rousson and Marsan, which are siblings, more cousins than siblings. Yeah. And then Viognier. And those are the 3 grape varieties of white in the north. And those are the only 3 authorized. It is forbidden to use anything else, just as it's forbidden to use anything but Syrah for red.
Was there a time when Viognier would be blended into these Syrahs in the Northern Rhone?
Yes. So part of that AOC, Appellation d'origine contrôlée, there's a lot of very rigid rules. And the 5 appellations inside the Northern Rhone Valley have very crazy names, of which one we'll visit today. The names are the king, the true king, sorry ladies, queen, king and queen, is Hermitage. Hermitage is the king of the Northern Rhone. And it is, can be red and white. There is white Hermitage and red Hermitage. The red Hermitage, it is permissible to blend up to 15% of the white grape varieties into the red. Well, you would ask, why? I'll explain in a moment. So Hermitage is one of the 5. Crozes-Heritage, we'll visit today. Croze as in that annoying black bird that wakes you up in the morning. Croze. Crozes-Heritage. Saint-Joseph, named after the patron Saint Joseph.
Wait, William, I heard today that that's actually, let me look at my notes. He's actually the patron saint of scorned men. Did you know that?
Okay.
That made me happy. We finally have somebody that's on a little bit on our side.
Okay. Thank you for the update. Hermitage, Crozes-Heritage, Saint-Joseph, which used to be called Vent de Mauve, whereas Crozes-Heritage used to be called Vent de Mur, which is wall. Vent de Mauve, Saint-Joseph, was the name before they called it Saint-Joseph. Mauve is purple. Vent de Mur, wall. Hermitage, named after the very famous knight of Stromblier, Hermitage. Cornaz, which in Gallic, ancient French, Gallic means scorched earth. Cornaz, spelled C-O-R-N-A-S. And then Côte Rôtie, roasted slope, is the translation of Côte Rôtie. Côte, hill, rôtie, roast. So those 5 appellations are all appellations of red. There's a really tiny one, which we won't talk about, and it's an appellation of white. It's the smallest appellation in all of France, called Château Gruyère, where only 1 wine is made, and it's white, and it's Viognier. But anyways, so these 5 appellations comprise the Northern Rhone Valley. In 2 of the appellations, it is permissible to blend a white wine in to the red. Well, why? Because historically, these red wines are very tannic, very hard, very drying on the cheek. And if you blend a tiny bit of white, you can soften that wine a little bit. Hope that makes some sense. So here we have the map. So we see we'll call it the very skinny thing on the top. That's the Northern Rhone Valley. And the bigger base on the bottom, that's the Southern Rhone Valley. The gap between the north and the south is 125 miles. And the very northernmost of the Northern Rhone is Côte Rôtie, a roasted slope. We see Château Gruyère, which is right beneath Condrieu, Saint-Joseph, Hermitage, Cornaz, and I always forget Saint-Péray because, I'm sorry, it's sort of the, yeah, you know what I mean. So anyways, Crozes-Heritage has been expanded, as has Saint-Joseph. From up until 1956, those 2 appellations were tiny, very small, because they were only hillside vineyards, just hill. Saint-Joseph and Crozes-Heritage were never flat. They were only very steep hills. After some judicious lobbying, areas that really were not suitable, of my opinion, to make fine wine, those appellations were expanded. Olivier and Marilyn Dumaine, they've owned their land since 1650. So their lands are on the very steep hills. They have non-flatland grape land. So here we have parcels that are terraced and that are 60 degrees minimum in steepness. I remember back in my third visit to Olivier in 2008. So I met him in 2000, visited him in 4, I was married, too busy in 5, and we visited him in 8. My daughter Simone was 2, and I was carting her around in one of those portable car carriers. So Olivier took us down the hill in his truck, and Simone and I were in the truck, and I thought we were done for. They said, "You can't drive down this, Olivier. It's too steep. The truck is going to flip over." No, I do this all the time. So anyways, the images unfortunately are 2D, not 3D, because the parcels that we were driving on and he farms are 60 degrees in steepness.
So, yeah, William, Kathy and I got to go with William and Jonathan and some other people, 2 years ago, I guess now, about. And we got to bounce around the hills of Saint Joseph with Olivier. There's just Kathy and I actually that were, there we are. That's his wife and I and Olivier. And that's actually in Crozes-Heritage though. But so we bounced around.
Yes,
we were in an old. Yes, we were in an old Ford pickup truck, and we went up Saint Joseph, which, like William explained, is seriously like, I don't know, like it feels like mountains of Montana. You go back and forth on the trail, and we get to the very top, and you can see the whole Rhone Valley and the Rhone River. And he is so proud of this. And the terrace that they made, and he does tractors on that to plow it and stuff. It feels like to me they're just gonna fall right over. And it was just an amazing experience. And he was so proud of his vineyards that I think this is a fairly new one, maybe in the 90s, right, William?
In what sense?
Saint Joseph, when he planted the vineyards in Saint Joseph?
So they've owned Saint Joseph. They replanted.
Oh, replanted.
They replanted. But his family goes back to 1650 on his side of the ledger. They've owned land in Saint Joseph since 1650. And during the, sorry, it's relevant now, but during the plague years and war years, they would sell peaches. They didn't sell wine when things were hard.
And like you said, the Hermitage Hill is one of the most legendary hills in the history of wine. And I kind of snuck my way up to the top where Jabelet owns that chapel.
Yes.
It's one of the most iconic, if you're a wine geek, one of the most iconic pictures is Robert Parker and Jabelet, and got the cross and the chapel up on top of the Hermitage Hill. So I had to do that. I had to act like that just because I'm a geek. But so, I mean, this is seriously thousands of years, like recorded history of people growing grapes in this region.
Yes. It's easy to overstate. But when I was introduced to Olivier, because the family I work with in the Southern Rhone we were having some Cornas, odd enough. Jean-Luc of Dumaine de Couronne had a friendship, let's call it friendship, with Robert Michel in Cornas, and they would buy each other's wines. And one evening we were having Cornas of Robert Michel, and I said, "Oh, Jean-Luc, this is delicious." "Oh yeah, this is my friend Robert Michel." "Oh, can we meet him?" "Of course." So a couple of days later, we drove up to meet Robert Michel, and the wines were being represented by someone else. But Robert Michel told me, "Oh, I love this Syrah from Olivier Dumaine. I work with his father, and now it's Olivier. You might want to give him a call. I love the Syrah." So Robert Michel called him and said, "Oh, this is American here, and it's some wine. I told him about your wine, and can we come visit?" "Sure, of course." So we went to visit. And this is, I want to say spring of 2000. From memory, certainly. Yeah, spring of 2000, I think. And that's how I met Olivier and Marilyn. And we had lunch. And I loved the wines. And I said, "Look, I don't know if you ever sold your wines in the US, but Robert loves your wines, and we can have a go. We can have a try. He says, "We don't have much." And I said, "Okay, well, how much do you have?" "Oh, I have 600 bottles." I said, "Okay." And that's how we started, 600 bottles.
So we got to get, Jonathan and I and Kathy and some other people got to go on this trip with William, and you guys have a woman that works for you that's from Burgundy, France, right?
Yes.
Wow.
Right. So what I thought was really interesting, so on these trips, this trip, not trips, this is the most unique trip I've ever been on. We get to taste with the winemakers and invited into their homes and wineries. And what I thought was interesting is, like, I don't know if you guys, I think you heard me earlier talk about Burgundy might be kind of a little bit, I'll go with snobby, or they're just kind of private and not necessarily gregarious people.
No.
And so this lady, Olivier's wife, made boeuf bourguignon, and she's a northern Rhone lady, and she made boeuf bourguignon for a lady from Burgundy, and I'm like, wow, I don't think that's like me making, I don't know, like something from Italy for an Italian pasta or something, So.
Yeah.
But it was absolutely amazing, and we got to taste seriously good amounts of wine. And I think, what did we taste, William? We had something really special.
Oh. Olivier took a Magnum of 2009 Saint-Joseph and Crozes-Heritage to serve with this boeuf bourguignon and gratin, this potato gratin. And I wish I had a stomach 4 times the size, my normal size, because the gratin, the butter, and the potatoes was parfait. It was perfect. And then I said, "Olivier, I'm going to burst. I can't eat anymore." "No, you have to eat more. Marilyn made another tray." So he said, "Oh, William, I'll fix your full stomach." So he got up, left the kitchen, came back with this clear bottle and this a magnetape sticker on the bottle, and there was liquid in the bottle, and the magnetape said eau de vie 1987. I said, "Oh, my father made this." I said, "Olivier, this is for a special occasion." He said, "Oh, this is a special occasion." We poured the eau de vie around everyone in the glass, and it was, again, let's see, who was president in 87? Was that Ronald Reagan, I think? Yeah, anyways, so this was made, and Ronald Reagan was in office. And he poured us all eau de vie. And he said, "This will take care of your full stomach." And it's okay, come on, right. And I had some eau de vie, and within 5 minutes, I was ready for more gratin.
What does eau de vie mean?
The water of life. Le, water, de vie, water of life.
So let's talk about the wine in our glasses. Maybe start with the white. I think some people have both because they're lushes like us, and some people only have the white or the red. But let's start with the white, if you would.
Okay.
Just kind of talk about it. I know the grapes and whatever, but
yeah. So Crozes-Heritage, again, the name origin. Hermitage is the famous. It's a place. It's a massive hill. It's right above the village of Tain. So Hermitage is named after the hermit, the knight. Croz, or Croz, the annoying bird, comes the hyphen because it's another village just on the other side of the river. So Crozes-Heritage, the appellation is predominant on the label, not the grape variety. So Crozes-Heritage Blanc, or white Crozes-Heritage, is predominantly Marsan. Marsan is the grape. Sort of Marsan. No G. Marsan. That's the name of the grape variety. It's predominantly Marsan. There's a tiny bit of Roussan, just a tiny bit, but not much. And so Marsan is ce goût du noisette. C'est un petit peu fleur blanc aussi. En bouche, c'est beaucoup gras, n'est pas beaucoup acidité. So it's a white wine. It's aromas of noisette, so hazelnut aroma. On the mouth, it's full, gras, fat. Not much acidity, but you get some white flour, white flowers for flavor, and a slight bit of hazelnut, and the white fruit. That's the predominant presentation of Marsan. So as you notice, it's all about the texture. So the texture is more important than acidity. So it's got a sort of a, I want to say sort of a slightly creamy flavor on the attack. With time, it fills out a bit more, but it's all about texture with Marsan. Not a lot of acidity for the tongue.
One of my favorite pairings I've ever had in life is I was in Tain or Ton, or how do you say it?
Yeah.
I was in there and we had a Viognier with a tiny little ravioli with an almond cream sauce.
Yum.
I mean, I think that would just go perfect with this, right?
Yeah.
Those are part of the, we've talked about this last night, part of the world is just figuring out what, pairs well and like you get flavors in your mouth going. Like sometimes Kathy and I will have different meals and I'm like, no, I don't want that. I'm happy with what's going on in my palate right now, right?
Yeah, Marsan, Crozes-Heritage Blanc is one that actually could really go on its own, as long as you don't drink it too cold. If it's too cold, you miss a lot of the pleasure of this wine.
I think in general, the European winemakers or people that drink in Europe would think we drink our whites too cold and our reds too hot.
Yes, I would agree.
Right. And then I think maybe the Crozes-Heritage, Syrah. I think when we were in the vineyard that Tara flashed that picture earlier, didn't he take over like the city owned the property? Yes. And then they hired Olivier to regenerate the vine.
Yes, the castle in the background, behind Mark and Marilyn and Olivier. That castle right there, yes. That is middle part of the 11th century. And right on the left, so we're looking at the tree in front of the castle. On the left, there is a parcel of Crozes-Heritage here. And Olivier was given the task, because the wine that comes from these vines are served in the mayor's office. So he was given the responsibility of cultivating that parcel of land. Right next to the castle, so there's the major castle and then a little tiny fortress, a defense tower to the left. That's right in front of the turret, the military protectorate part. That's the parcel where Olivier farms and makes wine for the mayor's office, which is served in the mayor's office. Yeah.
So let's talk about the Syrah a little bit.
Okay, so this the Syrah that makes this wine was put in the vines were put in the ground when McKinley was in office.
What's that? Early 1900s?
1890, 1895, 1890, just before the turn of the century. Yeah.
Crazy.
And the soil here is granitic or kaolin, so old granite soil. It's I mean the amount of the yield that comes from the vines are quite small, and it is not American Syrah. So again, we have it's not Washington Syrah, not California Syrah. It's different because it's a different place. It's different because you can't irrigate, number two. And then thirdly, the climate is quite cool and the soil is granitic. So all those factors give you a different presentation of Syrah. More of a less masculine, less muscular, more finesse.
Less fruit too. It's a drier style, right?
Yes. It is more of a symphony than a rock band.
Nice.
Both are great. Rock is great. Jazz is great. It's just different.
Right. I think, does everybody have wine, the red wine, agree that this is not an American Syrah? Like not your Washington or California? Like it's hard to sell, especially California, because it's really hard to sell in the retail environment these, because they're just so syrupy sweet to me. Not sweet, I guess that's the wrong word, but just big fruity fruit bombs. And these things are completely different. And so I think one of the things that's going on in America, in the French world, is they're starting to put the word Syrah on, or the word Pinot Noir on, where they're kind of, I wouldn't call it dumbing down, I guess, but kind of just acquiescing to the American understanding of wine. So what do you think about that, William?
Well, I'm happy that we, in the US, we're now embracing the idea that place matters. And that Sonoma and Napa Valley and Santa Barbara and Santa Lucia and Paso Robles, these are all places and they're distinct. Certainly the weather in Paso Robles is different than the weather in Sonoma or Napa. Certainly the weather in Willamette is different than it is in Napa. And certainly the weather in Columbia Valley and Red Mountain is different than it is in Paso Robles. Even with climate change, the latitudes receive different sunlight. The soil types are different, and the vine itself will do different work based upon its environment. So that's key. And to put the brand, the variety in the label, look, each producer will make that decision for her or his self. And thankfully, those appellations, Paso Robles, Santa Lucia, Santa Barbara, Sonoma, Napa, Willamette, in wine consumers' minds, we recognize those places because they're important. And
I agree. I think the Willamette Valley has done a beautiful job of kind of delineating what they are. They're a Chardonnay, Pinot Gris, Pinot Noir place. And so if you see Willamette Valley on a label in America, you know what you're kind of getting.
yes,
Which has been centuries going on in the French world, or the
in
Italian
Austria,
world.
in Switzerland,
Right.
in Spain, in Greece, in Italy, in Luxembourg, where they make wine there, in Switzerland, where they make wine there. Mark and I were discussing previously, look, if you're 16 years old and you're French, you know that Champagne means Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier, and Chardonnay of some fashion or other, because it's Champagne. You don't have to put Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier on the label. In the Châteauneuf du Pape, you know it's Grenache, Mourvèdre, Cru Noir. You know, Châteauneuf du Pape, that's what's inside. So no need to put all the grape varieties on the label because those places mean something.
I think the Willamette Valley is the one that has kind of defined that for us in America so far, where you just know when you see Willamette Valley and you see a red wine, it's similar to Burgundy to me, where it's gonna be, if it's white, well, white, I guess it's a little different in white, but definitely in red, it's gonna be Pinot Noir.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So hold on, wait, I'm supposed to ask you a question.
Okay.
What temp do you think the Europeans drink red and whites at?
I think you're going to be surprised here. Cellar temperature is slightly cooler than room. So if you're in Italy or in France and you want to drink a white wine, you pull it out of the refrigerator and then you start cooking. Or you want to drink a white wine on your back patio, you pull it out of the fridge and you wait. You wait until, by and large, the condensation is off the bottle. Yeah. So by the time it's poured, the condensation is on the glass, but the room starts to bring the temperature of the white wine up. So cooler than room for white, but not much. And with red, the same. You go to someone's house for dinner, the white wine they just pulled out of the refrigerator. Yeah, it's cool. And the temperature of the wine will come up to the room temperature. Europeans equally, they drink wine a little bit slower than we do. We drink it a little bit faster than they do.
What?
Yeah, they do. They drink a little bit slower. I'm not making
William, I've seen you drink. You don't drink like we drink.
Yeah.
You're definitely European.
I'm not making a value judgment. I'm just they drink it a little bit slower, so the white will be warmer and the red will be cooler.
Right.
And it's amazing how much we miss of white when it's too cold. Amazing how much.
The aromas especially, don't you think?
The texture. Yeah.
All right. Anything else anybody has to talk about?
Jonathan asked about the vineyard name.
Oh, Jonathan, do you want to jump in about the vineyard name?
Le Creux du Vert.
I think William should speak to this, but I think it's a fascinating story which ties amazing history. When I tell it, I probably tell it with lots of embellishments, but I think I'd love to hear William talk about Le Croix de Vert.
Okay, Le Croix de Vert. So on the label you see a cross with a little stand, and there's the hillside. Le Croix de Vert, so right across the river, where the famous knight of Crozes-Heritage in the 12th century, so late 11th century, he was a knight. And lore, partially lore and partial truth, because there's not many written records, he launched a crusade from right across the river from this place. And 700 and some odd years later, right, yes. So this is a point where, I mean, the local clergy come to bless this place, and it's come to be blessed annually. And this is the origin of Le Croix du Vert.
So you and I talked earlier about maybe picking a wine that you know is in Kathy's warehouse from you, and not, I mean, you guys, obviously, all of you are required to buy more of this wine from Olivier, because
Any other questions that we can answer before we do this?
Yeah.
I want to make sure that I've
Saint Joseph,
not missed.
seriously, you guys got to try this. This is amazing, and it is $34, $36 a bottle. So you have to try that for sure. So maybe talk about the Saint Joseph from Olivier a little bit, what you think tastes there, and then pick another wine that's in Kathy's warehouse that you would recommend too.
But these are two different appellations. So Crozes-Heritage, which we've tasted, the white and the red. And then the other appellation is called Saint Joseph. Again, it seems really foolish for us to say, what's the difference? Why would you plant Syrah in one place and call it one thing, and plant Syrah in another place and call it something else? Especially in such a small confine, not too far apart. Really, Napa and Sonoma are not too far apart either. Red Mountain is a place within the Columbia Valley AVA. And they're different because they are different. And the difference in Saint Joseph and Crozes-Heritage, I would call they're sisters. And Crozes-Heritage is the younger, no value judgment. They're both mature. They're both mature sisters. Crozes-Heritage is the one who likes to go out with her girlfriends a lot. And Saint Joseph is studious. Saint Joseph likes to learn. She likes to discover what she doesn't know. And her viewpoint is a bit more narrow. It is not scientific or scientific rigorous. She's not really interested. Whereas Crozes-Heritage is more of a party gal. Sorry. That's how these two wines from this producer and his wife differ. They're both Syrah, but they are different. Saint Joseph is a bit more closed, a bit more sturdy. She takes a bit more time to open up to others. Whereas Crozes-Heritage, she's ready to ask you to have a drink and go out with her girlfriends immediately. She's not closed.
Maybe you should do this for a living, sell wine or something.
Oh.
What do you think? How about a wine other than Olivier? Because you guys are all going to buy Olivier's wines.
Wow.
Pick one out of Kathy's warehouse that you would recommend.
I recommend the Comte de Loz, just
Oh.
rejecting, which is a woman winemaker, second generation, one of the only women winemakers that owns her own winery. And I'll let William tell you the rest, but I am just absolutely blown away by this wine. And it's very different than any other Chateauneuf-du-Pape that I've ever had.
Yes, I'm gonna
William, you have to wait for a minute. You
Hold
have
my
to
hand.
see what Chateauneuf-du-Pape is if you're going to do this story.
Oh, yes. So actually, we go back in history as well. Chateauneuf-du-Pape is an appellation. It's in the southern Rhone Valley. So we talked about the north and then talked about the south. Chateauneuf-du-Pape is it's a tongue twister of a name, but it's in the southern Rhone, and it's just about 7 miles, so about 7 kilometers, about 4¾ miles north of Avignon, the city in the south, the capital of the southern Rhone Valley. Okay, here we go. So Chateauneuf-du-Pape, why do we not see it on this map? So if we see, okay, I'll point out where it is. So do you see Avignon there on the bottom?
Mm-hmm.
The bottom middle?
Yes.
So Chateauneuf-du-Pape is just north, sort of a two periods north of Avignon on the map. And it's a tongue twister of a name, Chateauneuf-du-Pape. And the name in ancient French, chateau, house, neuf, new, du, of, pape, pape, the Pope. Because in the middle part of the 12th century, the papacy was moved outside of Rome by Clement V. Yes, it was moved outside of Rome to just north of Avignon. And that period in history is called the period of Babylonian captivity. Yes. So one pope, Clement V, so Philip V bestowed the papacy to Clement V. There was a schism in the church, and the papacy was in what was then called Gaul, which is now France. Yes. So again, the translation is New House of the Popes, Chateauneuf-du-Pape. Yes. Oh, one thing before I talk about Chateauneuf-du-Pape. So Crozes-Heritage, it is 92% red, and only 8% of wine made in Crozes-Heritage is white. So the white is quite rare.
And William, we should probably say that the Comte de Lose is very unusual that it is only 2 grapes, Grenache, you say it so much better, and Syrah, where, as you mentioned earlier, it could be up to 13 or 15 grapes, depending on how you look at it. And it is a very different style, and it's absolutely delicious. If nobody's tried it, it's definitely worth every penny.
And so I will see Jonathan's hand. He chose Chateauneuf-du-Pape. I'm actually going to go a bit more obscure, but historical for my favorite wine, because it is so very rare, and it is the Chateau.
Yes.
Chateau, yes. It is it's Nebbiolo in France, but it's Nebbiolo that left France and arrived in Piedmont. Try that for a twist.
I think you have to explain Nebbiolo. It's a very tannic grape. It takes forever to mature. And I think the Chateau is a more expressive version, or at least a more rich version of the Nebbiolo grape, right?
Yeah. Yes, humankind in about, again, the 12th century, nearly the 200 years before the Middle Ages ended, humankind brought Nebbiolo southeast from Gaul to the northern part of Italy on the border of Switzerland in the region called Piedmont. And 800 years and natural selection later, one calls it Nebbiolo or Barolo. In France, it is called Chateau. It's richer than Nebbiolo. It's more approachable when it's young. The berry is smaller. The wine is fuller. It's lush, as if you put your head on your pillow after a long day of work. That feeling where your head sinks into the pillow. That's Chateau. So.
And William, what was with that grape? Wasn't it lost in France for a while, and they didn't know what it was?
Yes. It was an enigma. This grape variety that was difficult to cultivate because when it flowered, not all the flowers gave you buds. If you pruned the wrong flower, the vine says, okay, I'm going to get you and won't give you anything. And it was up until, if my dates might be wrong here, up until the turn of the last century, there was just less than 30 hectares, so less than 70 acres. Now there's just 3 families who grow this grape variety, and just one of those 3 bottles it on its own. The other 2 families will grow it, they'll sell it to a cooperative, where it's blended with Syrah and Grenache. And Marie-Lise of Dumaine said, oh, William, we love this grape variety, we know the grower, and she sent me a case. But she didn't tell me where the case was. I bought some wine from that family. The container arrived, and she told me after, oh yes, William, we sent you a case of this very rare wine called Chateau. And I said, Marie-Lise, where did you put it? Oh, yeah, in the container, pallet number 7. The container had arrived a month earlier, and I'd sent wine all over the country. Yes. So I called everyone, oh, did you receive this wine with a special marking on the outside of the case? No. Click. Called around. Click, 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 click. Our distribution partner called Paradise Beverages in Hawaii. William, we have this weird wine. There's a big leaf on the label. What is it? Ah, I found it. I found it. So I got the bottles back, and I loved the wine. Yeah. And Marie-Lise, I said, Marie-Lise, who's the grower? Oh, it's Christophe and the friends of ours. They're a great family, very good. And that's how I learned about Chateau.
The funny part, the first time I sold this, I didn't know it came in 6-packs. So I divided by 12 and put my very slim markup on it, as far as you guys know. And somebody that works for Kathy called me and said, you're selling it for under cost. So the first Chateau I got in the Montana market, I lost money on it. So you guys should all send a donation. I think like $5 each is fine. So anyway, anything else anybody wants to talk about?
There was one more question. When to use a decanter?
I'll leave that up to you. Because it really is personal preference. Yeah, we know, I mean, scientific rigor has really answered this question for us already. So forgive me if I'm gonna sound like a nerd, because at heart I am. The oxygen molecule, O2, the reason why I want to use a decanter, or you can use a pitcher, it doesn't have to be anything really fancy. Just make sure it's clean, first and foremost. Use a decanter when you want to get the oxygen molecule into the wine. That's when you want to use a decanter. When you want to turn broccoli into steamed broccoli, you use water, steam, and heat. When you want to get salmon or trout into that perfect position, you use heat. When you use a decanter, you want to get some oxygen molecule, that O2. You want to use it to break some of those bonds, those chains of the wine, to either soften it or let it talk to you, let it express what's inside of it. And a decanter really is a method of speeding up the aging process. It's a bit of a crude method, sort of using a hammer when using a screwdriver would be best. Ideally, if there's a wine that you'll discover yourself. Try it when it's first open. Try it after an hour in the decanter, and ask yourself, which do you prefer? What do you find most expressive? And that's the answer.
Don't you think it's kind of age too? Like, I think the older the wine, the less you want to decant it. So the decanting is really about the youth and trying to get some age into it by decanting it.
Yes, or if it's a white wine, it helps you warm it up quicker than if it's all in the bottle.
All right, so I know we've gone a long ways, but it's Friday night. Can we keep going for a minute? You guys can sign off if you want, but I'm having fun. So we have one more question. So first, William, you and I did a champagne tasting on our deck in Marie Copenhagen. So I would like to talk a little bit about Marie Copenhagen and their wines, because I was so
Yes.
impressed when I was in Champagne.
Yeah, that castle we visited, Mark, I went and looked it up. That was 13th century. That was a residence of someone at one time. That was their house. And that moat was a real moat. That's crazy.
But talk about the Copenhagen family and what they've done in the Champagne region. And I think nobody knows about Champagne. Like, I think how it's created.
We often forget that Champagne is a place and a process. But first and foremost, it's a place. It's Montana. It's a place. And similar to Burgundy, over the last 2,200 years, it has been attacked and run through a lot. So the people are very insular. They're not too open to strangers because there's a collective history of being taken over or being run over. And that's why people in Burgundy are insular and Champagne the same. So Champagne is freezing. It's cold. And Pinot Meunier, Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, and that person, Dom Perignon, these are all etched in our collective memories because that monk, Dom, did his best using the scientific method to make sense of this wine that wouldn't stop sparkling. That the second year, when the seasons went from warm to cold, he created all this fizziness in the bottle. And it is special because it is difficult, it is freezing, it is hard, and typically when things are difficult to do, we cherish them a bit more. And Marie took over from her father. Her brother was not interested, and so she took over from her father. And it is a family domain. They do everything themselves, and for me, Champagne is special. It's special. It goes by itself. It goes with every plate, every meal. It takes a lot of work. And to think that after all that work, the wine costs $40 a bottle. And they worked on the wine 10 years ago. It's been in the cellar for 10 years.
One of the crazy things that I think is that people think Cristal or Dom Perignon, they're making 200, 300,000 or millions of cases a year, and then they don't I think Champagne is an odd duck because they have sold their kind of its name brand more like than it is. And really what Marie is doing in Copenhagen is unbelievable for a third of the cost or a fifth of the cost of some of these high-end champagnes.
Yes, in Champagne, 90% of the land is owned by small families. 90%. And the 10% is owned by very big luxury houses or insurance companies. And the irony is 90% of the champagne, 95% of the champagne sold in the US is from those big insurance companies, but they don't own 90% of the land. So it's upside down. These small families, Marie Copinet, Marie Cotin, Jacques Chalas, et cetera, they don't have the money. They don't have the money to do all the marketing. They own the land, but the big insurance companies and the big luxury groups have all the marketing dollars. Henceforth, Dom Perignon, Krug is owned by a big group, et cetera. They have all the marketing dollars to fill up the shelves, but small families who own the land and do all the work with their own hands, they don't have the marketing dollars. So oftentimes they're overlooked.
Yeah, we had so much fun at that. I love Marie Copenhagen's estate, and that's where I got my my robot mowers. Remember those?
Right.
William? We have those in our house now. We bought the Husqvarna
Fantastic.
robot mowers, right? Because that was so much fun. But anyway, I think that's about it. Thank you so much, William.
You're awesome.
Love you. And
thank you, Jonathan.
Jonathan, thank you.
Stacy.
Cheers,
Bye.
Stacy.
Thank you, all of you.
Yeah.
So
Thank
tomorrow
you.
night,
Thank you
I
very
got a
much.
little announcement. We are going to Ming Cooley, which anybody that's went from Great Falls will understand that's up in the middle of nowhere. And I did a test run today on the internet, and apparently they have better internet than we do because there was absolutely no interruptions because there's probably nobody up there. So Ming Cooley is up from the Gulch in Centerville, and my friend Jeffrey and Sarah Milholland own a ranch up there, and we're going to do our little deal tomorrow night from Ming Cooley, so it'll be really fun. And we have a guy, right? Yeah, a guy
Mhm.
from Herman Story from Paso Robles. You said it better, I know. You always say Grenache and Paso Robles and whatever better than I do, William. But and don't you think that gets frustrating, Jonathan? A little bit, right? Yeah. Like we can't be as cool as you, William. It's just
Wow.
not gonna happen.
I'll give you the tip for the kind words later on, Mark. Thank you.
So anyway, we'll be up there tomorrow night. It's going to be so much fun, and I can't wait to taste it. I think it's a Grenache blend, mostly Grenache from Paso. And these guys are not over-extracted, big fruit dumbasses. Sorry, I'm just going to say that. Like they make quality wine that I love. So anyway, so thank you so much, William and Jonathan,
Yes.
and it was so fun, and
Yeah.
love you guys all, and cheers.
Cheers.
See you tomorrow.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
nice job, William.
Thank you.